Hello everyone, I'm Maddie Shine and I am known as the SEO and Visibility Queen. I work with ambitious female entrepreneurs all over the world to help them grow their businesses through being more visible online. I absolutely love what I do, and you can probably tell I'm no shrinking violet myself. But what I love to do is actually help people who see things as typically dry and dull and boring, turn them into something a little bit more exciting so they feel more motivated to do something about it. And this is why I'm delighted to talk to you today, here with Isolated Talks, to talk about how to stay motivated when you just don't know what to say now in your business. Now, the thing is, what I find is it's often not the problem that we're stuck on. It's often finding a solution exciting enough to actually make us want to do something about it. So let me first of all tell you a little story, because right now in these crazy pandemic times, there is so much doom and gloom about that it's hard not to buy into that. It's hard to find a way forward. Are people still growing their businesses? Are people still launching their own businesses? Are people still buying? So let me tell you a little story about me. 10 years ago, I was made redundant from a job that I was totally into. I absolutely loved my day job. I thought it was brilliant. But also, when I was made redundant, I just thought my world had fallen apart. I lost my last remaining grandparent. I was massively in debt, having lived a very, very full and exciting life here in London, and I didn't know what to do. I actually, because it was the recession, there were no jobs available at my kind of tier. So I actually had to take a job a few kind of tiers down and, really swallow my pride. I paid myself out of debt in that temp job. I got promoted twice. I was awarded an award at this job, which is so rare for a temp. And do you know what? I actually got myself out of that whole dark hole of depression. Now, looking at me now, you think that kind of person, surely she doesn't suffer from depression and anxiety. But guess what? Not a Disney character. Also a human being. And so actually, if I can go from that kind of position where I thought that everything was just awful and would always be awful, to working my way through it, to finding the right solutions that worked for me, and now here where I've got a thriving business doing what I love, then I believe anyone can. Now, the thing is, when I was, it wasn't just obviously smooth sailing. It wasn't, there were lots of kind of peaks and troughs, and there continue to be, because hey, it's life, right? But one thing that I have noticed is when I am stuck, and let me tell you now, I still get stuck a lot, even 10 years in, then I really see, okay, how am I going to get out of it this time? And so what I wanted to do was share 8 simple tips to see if you can work these out too. The old way of building a business was to think logically. Okay, got to think logically, completely devoid of emotion. Okay, so then when you've thought logically, completely devoid of emotion, you've got to then create this plan of attack. And then when you've created that plan of attack with complete confidence, you then go and execute that plan of attack, right? And with 100% success rate. And then you revel in your success and everything is great and everyone praises you. Well, let me tell you, even though that is the old way of giving advice about how to run a business, it's not reality, is it? Let's face it, it's never worked, it never will work. But that doesn't mean to say there's not some truth in it. What I've noticed is when I share these tips that I'm about to share with you, with my clients, with my community, in the courses that I teach, on my High-Vis podcast, then what I've seen is that people really not only are willing to actually listen to them, but they're also willing to do something about them. And that is the key difference. So what are these magical motivational tips? The first one is set aside time to relax. You might be thinking, hang on a second. Do I really think that that is going to help me get motivated? But do you know what? Nothing good ever came from trying to take action when you are so stressed you can't even see, when you are wriggling at your desk because you need to go to the toilet, but if only you could just send those last 10 emails before you close your computer down. And this is the problem. When we set aside even a moment to relax and start from that position, even if it's just relaxing our shoulders, even if it's just taking a deep breath, then from that place, I have found that it's going to be a lot easier. It's going to be a lot easier on myself, and therefore the people I'm dealing with are going to enjoy dealing with me a lot more. Now, I actually take it one step further. I love to meditate. I practice a particular type of meditation. I've tried quite a few in my time. I study a kind of meditation with a Dzogchen teacher. I highly recommend looking it up. Go and Google Dzogchen teaching. But the thing is, when I set aside that time to relax, like I say, I'm so much easier to deal with myself, but also in my relationships, in my conversations with other people. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is think about the next step only. Often when I'm stuck and don't know what to do next and feel like there's so much going on, I have to keep it simple. I have to think about the next step only. You know, I remember there was a saying, back when I was 17, many moons ago, then I was told this saying, and it's stuck with me ever since because it delivers such a strong visual. You can't eat a whole elephant at once. You can only eat him in bite-sized chunks. Now, I've never eaten an elephant. I never will eat an elephant, but it certainly delivers a strong message, I think. Because what we try and do is when we see a massive problem, like trying to move forward with our business, trying to move forward with our lives, then what we find is, oh my goodness, we can't do it all at once. And no, you can't. No one can. But if you think about the next step only, and then the next step after that, it really makes it so much easier to get going, to do that next thing on your never-ending to-do list. Sounds pretty good, right? It certainly helps me, and I think it will help you too. Tip number 3, remember what else you've got going for you. I really find it very, very challenging indeed. With running my own business, I have to revisit time and time again to remember that I am not my business. That actually I have to detach that whole sense of self-worth, self-belief, and all that stuff that previously used to seem so woo-woo, and now in 2020, it feels like it's so prevalent, right? But what does it really mean? Well, when I remember what else I've got going for me, the relationships I have with perhaps my family, my friends, my loved ones, hey, with pals on Instagram, whoever it is, remember what else I have going for me. Remember why I do what I do. Because if I just do it for the sake of doing it, if I just have my business for the sake of just earning money and that's it, if that's my end purpose, I'm never going to be motivated. A wise person once told me that money is actually simply a hygiene factor. If you have it, great. But that's not actually the motivating factor in itself. It's what that money will bring you. It's what lifestyle that will bring you. It's what it will bring you for you and your loved ones. So remember what else you've got going for you. And I really find that it helps me motivate myself when I touch in with that. In fact, I've even got a list. That I read, and it really does help. So try making your own list and see if it helps you too. Tip number 4. Download your brain. Now the thing is, when I launch my own business, and in fact whenever I'm launching something new ever since, so whether it's a course, it's a new service, it's a new offering, heck, I launched a podcast earlier this year. I have found that when I'm launching anything or trying to think about anything, or even just the running of the day-to-day business, then what I've seen is when I download my brain, so I get my A3 pad and my big fat markers out and I just go for it. I brainstorm the shit out of it, basically. And what I found is when I do that, it is so much easier because I've cleared my brain space. If you try and keep it all in your brain, No matter whether you're a pen and paper girl, whether you're all about using your notes on your phone, whether you have got a task management system, whatever your kind of way of thinking is, when you try and get it all out, then you've got more space for creativity. When I share this with my clients, they're like, oh my goodness, it's like a light bulb. Boom. It's so, so good, right? And so when you download your brain and when you brainstorm everything like that, then actually it really helps bring that sense of perhaps ease, perhaps relaxation. And then from there, you are so much kinder to yourself. Heck, you might even say, right, okay, well now I've got really a lot to do because now I've got it down on paper. But you might actually see that you're not a robot and it's okay just to do one thing at a time. Number 5, look at what worked before. Now the thing is, when I am thinking about, okay, we're in pandemic times now, things are very, very different. But in many ways, the way that your customers buy, the way that your clients book you, the kind of fundamentals, they probably haven't changed all that much. They may have gone more extreme, but they probably haven't changed. So when you're thinking about, okay, well, how do I promote the XYZ? What do I do now? Look at what worked before. See which elements you can take. Is it reaching out to people on one of the social media platforms? Is it creating certain graphics? Is it writing certain emails? Is it being in touch with certain people in your network? What worked before? And then when you do that, what I find is that also starts a great wheel of action. You're like, okay, what's the next step? Okay, great, I'm back. I'm getting back into the swing of it. Tip number 6. Think about what you would do if you weren't so worried about the fact that you're not doing it. Now, this might seem like an odd one, but honestly, this is something that I've been doing for maybe the past year or so now, where what I do is I make a list of all the things that I would do if I wasn't so worried, if I wasn't so scared, whether it's fear of failure, whether it's fear of rejection, whether it's fear of who knows what. There are many, many factors outside of our control, but actually when we look at what we're genuinely worried what might not happen, when we look at all the things that we could be doing, when we download our brain in that way, that also helps bring me back to a solution. Because if I'm just carrying them around, I make myself ill, I make myself stressed, and it doesn't feel good at all. So when I think about all the things that I might possibly do, then rather than going, what if, I go, what if? And actually, even if I just do it just for a split second, allow myself to feel the optimism and hope, then it makes me feel so much better and so much more motivated. Tip 7, look at solutions rather than beating yourself up over your shortcomings. Now, when I've suggested these kinds of tips to particular people, whether they're clients, whether they're friends who want to start their own business, things like this, then when I suggest them, they go, oh, well, I can't do that because X, Y, Z. And they talk themselves out of any kind of action whatsoever. In fact, they won't even allow themselves to think about it. And this is the thing. If you look at your shortcomings before you even have looked at a potential solution, you're never going to move forward in the way that you want. And that, again, is not a reason to beat yourself up. That is a reason to look at the solutions even more. And that's why I've sort of built up to it. Because when you allow yourself time to relax, and when you look at what worked before, when you focus on the next steps only, rather than trying to tackle this big grand plan that right now feels so impossible to do, then actually what you find is that things are so much easier. You'll find that solutions come more easily. And number 8, plan something fun. Now, when you plan something fun, you might think, why is that a motivational tip? But you know, when we were kids, and perhaps maybe a grandparent or someone would say to us, now, if you tidy your room, then you'll get a treat at the end of it, or something like this. And the thing is, we forget that technique really works as adults. And actually, I've found that when we plan something fun, at the end of having to do something that we really don't want to do, then actually that's where the treasure is. Because that leads us to a more fulfilling day. It leads us to a more fulfilling existence. Because so often we treat ourselves like robots. I speak so passionately about this because I have done this too. But when I follow my very own advice, then things become so much easier, particularly in these crazy times. So go ahead and plan something fun. The options may be more limited than usual, but you can still find something fun to do, I'm sure. So there we go. Those are my motivational tips on what to do when you don't know what to say next. If you've enjoyed these tips and this advice, I would love to hear from you. So please do come and tell me over at maddie.shine on Instagram. I would love you to slide into my DMs and tell me if this helped you. Thank you so much, Isolated Talks, for asking me along to share this advice and to donate this talk in aid of the Samaritans, a brilliant cause. And I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.